Trying out two new colors in my palette. This isoindoline yellow, a little bit of palette dirt. That's a nice bright yellow. Pretty. Let's dilute it a bit and see how it moves. Oh, I like it. And then I have Bloodstone Genuine. We're going to try that as well. Let's throw that down below and let it move upwards. Touch it in. Oh, I bought Bloodstone Genuine because Mark Taro Holmes was using it in his plein air palette, and I just had to see what I was missing. And you can see it goes down really nice and dark. It granulates like crazy. And it also dilutes to this really lovely kind of blackish cocoa color. That's a thing, right? I would say it's almost on the purple end of brown, because brown is never just brown. So it's always a good idea to be thinking about the characteristics of the brown you're using. Thinking critically about the browns that you're using and what their characteristics are will help you as you move towards learning how to mix your own browns and seeing how neutrals affect your painting and interplay in the scene. I'm just dropping a little more of that yellow down below here. Getting to know a color is easier when you give it that chance to flow and mix with other colors, when you see what it does organically, rather than just stirring it up in the palette or playing with it in individual swatches. I'm going to choose a violet to go with this. I was thinking about a cobalt turquoise, but violet is always kind of a fun addition. I'm just debating what I want to do. Let's make our own. I'm going to use this carmine from Daniel Smith because it's a nice kind of a neon red almost. And then we'll add some blue. Cobalt blue has been a favorite lately, so we'll work with that one. And just back and forth until I get the mixture that I like. And we'll just touch that in. As I've been mixing, of course, this paint has been starting to settle into the paper. Not moving enough to, or not dry enough to say it's drying at this point, but definitely kind of soaking in, moving a bit less. And that means the colors I add now should move a bit less as well. And I just want to add a little bit of kind of exclamation point violet in this painting. Look at how that drip up there is doing things, saying things. And violet mixed with yellow is going to get a little bit murky. You're going to see some neutrals happening as well. If I was approaching this as a painting more than just a warm-up, and wanting to add more colors, I could be thinking about the way when you use carmine and cobalt for a mixed color, that means I could also use them individually in this painting and have a nice unity happening. So that's just something to keep in mind. If I decide at some point that I'd like to add a blue or a red, I would choose from those two first. If I wanted to make an orange using this, I would use this yellow and then the carmine to create a nice harmonious orange. And that would be something else to experiment with. I'm really liking kind of the luminous colors that are happening in this area here. And as long as my paint is wet, the paint is doing things. So, you know, not all the painting that we do happens when we're moving our brush. Give your painting time to develop on its own terms as well. And I'm going to be doing that in just a minute. I'm going to be stopping and letting the painting finish itself in that drying process. Really love the granulation that's happening in this area. There's some beautiful granulation in here as well. This feels heavy to me. Let's add some water and lighten it up. If we can flow some of this color off the page, that should give us some of that transparency back. The deal with watercolor is the more paint you add, the more layering. If the color gets muddy, if we lose some of those luminous qualities, it feels less like watercolor. So we look for some transparency to happen to let the light shine through, because the light in our painting comes from the white of the paper. And you can see that color's flowing off, a very light touch. I didn't have to do much except add water to push some of that color. The more staining pigments will stay behind. I'm going to spray it a little bit, and that just gives it a little bit more pressure maybe than my brush was doing. And then I'm going to blot that excess pigment and water from the edge so it doesn't want to flow back and watermark. And now I have, not back to white precisely, but you can see I've gotten some of that glow back. And then I can kind of start over with a really gentle touch. See if I can't bring some of those pretty violets in a little bit of a less heavy manner. One thing that I'm learning as I do these experiments, and this is pretty, I'm ready to stop. I'm not going to touch it again until after it's dried and I've had a chance to really get to know it. And then I might decide I want to add more, although I think I'm probably going to call this one finished just the way it is. There's so much beautiful texture, there's beautiful edges. What happens when I do these warm-ups is I get to remind myself that every painting is an experiment. You really feel it when you're doing a playful warm-up where you don't have an objective aside from just playing and seeing what develops. But it's the same even in our more strategized paintings, that we are still experimenting. We're still trying out ideas, and we need to allow space for the watercolor to do its thing if we want that freedom of expression, that transparency and luminous qualities. If we want those to really shine in our paintings, we need to give them room to happen and give them freedom to develop as they will. And all of that, it's kind of a little bit of a learning to manage situation. As we learn that in our warm-ups, we can then implement it in our more structural paintings as well.